Just wait for the camera to come on. There we go. Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, February 1st, 2018. This is the Board of Selectmen meeting. First up on our agenda is a request for a common victual license for Dunkin' Donuts located at the Country Cupboard, 476 Main Street. Come on down. Yeah.
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Donovan. It's my partner Jason Green.
Stan Wysocki, pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yep.
Nice to meet you. Jason. Nice to meet you.
Hi. We're representing Bolton 1.
Please sit down.
Okay, thanks. See if they can get the seats to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're representing Bolton 1. Trying to open a Dunkin' Donuts inside the Country Cupboard. It's our first store, but together we got about 20 years in experience of operating Dunkins. We got some nearby in Berlin. Yeah, it's gonna be
Pretty excited, you know, look forward to, working with the Bolton community, so, yeah. Where's our first grocery store in Berlin? It's, right off exit 26, it's, and then we also have the one that's on, River Road West, at that road right there, where the old Pure Hospital is. And then we also have
That was busy.
yeah,
Super.
really good, yeah.
So are those all standalone or they're inside?
Satellites, yeah.
Satellites?
Yeah. Yep.
Super. And I'm sure you got the permission from
Yeah, well,
Country Cupboard.
yeah, so, we're looking forward
You've
to,
seen us enough.
we're really looking forward to working with Jane.
Super. And I know that when you were in talking about the renovations, you kind of showed us where the Dunkin' Donuts would be located.
And that's exactly where it is.
Yep. Okay. I think, we've talked about this before when you were here. I mean, I don't have any issue with that. I think it's, a great addition. I think, we've been looking to bring some additional business into town, so, I think it's within the footprint of the existing store. And certainly, we've done a great job in terms of the Country Cupboard. The addition of Subway, I think, has all been positive. So I don't have any issues or questions, gentlemen. Okay, so the next step, we vote to approve? Yes, please. Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the request for a common victual license for Dunkin' Donuts at the Country Cupboard.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
So you guys gonna be starting to move in as the renovations are done?
Yeah, we're hoping towards the end of February.
Okay, good, good.
We're looking forward to it.
Super, thank you, congratulations, thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, next up on our agenda is a request for permission to hold the Bear Hill Triathlon on Sunday, June 24th, 2018.
Me again.
Hi, Sue, how are you?
Good. Nothing has changed. It's the same course. So they come down Harvard Road to Green Road and up there. So we're crossing in out of Harvard.
Okay.
We're going to add 2 more marshals at the Green Road, Harvard Road intersection. Just to, they have a lot of cars. We can't stop them, but we can, warn them if there's runners, the bikers up there.
Right. So I'm sure you've talked to the chief about all
Yes, we have
this.
two sitting here.
Great. Thank you. All good? Super. No. I'm good with it. Okay.
Sounds good.
I'm not planning on participating this year, but
You'll be there in spirit.
over there it's good.
You have to do like I do. I said, I run the triathlon. I don't even run it.
It's like you run it. Run it. All right, well, I'll take a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Well, good luck.
All right, thank you.
Next up on our agenda is a recommendation from the Town Road Strategic Planning Committee for the initial budget proposal.
Hello.
I'm Doug Duchesne.
Stan Wysocki.
Stan, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you.
So we don't have to go.
Come on up. Yeah. Is Joe here? Joe Lynch?
He'll be here momentarily.
Okay. So our committee was set up in October. The charge for our committee was to draft recommendations and present them to you for potential redesign of Main Street, with an initial goal for a budget recommendation January 15th for sort of initial design and engineering. Okay. We're 2 weeks late, but we're close. We're close enough to the 15th. We went out in November of last year with a request for information to the design community, asking them, to consider previous reports that the town put out, the Route 117 prioritization committee report, other reports that have been issued. We held an open house in early January, where we had, I think, a half a dozen design firms come in and participate. And then 2 weeks ago, we received 6 total proposals or responses. 5 of them were one of them sort of declined to participate any further, but 5 of them were very detailed. They had, budget recommendations and scope recommendations for us to develop an RFP. So the budget recommendation that we're going to present tonight is $150,000. What we would plan to do is develop an RFP that fits within that budget. If this is something that would go on, town meeting in May, we would look to issue that RFP before then, potentially, and sort of run that process in parallel. And if the article passed, we would be then ready to go, May, June.
Ready to go with the RFP or ready to go with the work?
Ready to go with an award of the RFP. And that RFP would be design, concept design, development, community outreach, initial, planning, data collection and analysis. There wouldn't be any, hard actual work that would happen,
Right.
For that.
Okay.
And do you have an example, excuse me, do you have anything for the selectmen tonight that shows the scope of what the RFP would be
Well,
addressing?
the proposals, they sort of vary. I mean, I don't have something really to hand out. I mean, these are the proposals that we got, the responses that we received. I didn't bring multiple copies of them. What we would look to do is sort of tailor the RFP to that budget. And the numbers that we got in response to the RFI were all relatively consistent for the scope that we think we would need at this point.
Now, when do you think you would be in a position to have an RFP ready to go out?
I would say within a month or so would be the target. We meet every week, every couple of weeks. It's going to take us several sessions to get an RFP into a form that we could issue. We're February 1st right now, is probably mid-March would be a good goal. And then, if we had a 4 to 6 week, due date on that would line up pretty nicely with, town meeting. We would have some responses back, we'd be able to evaluate them, and we would know going in, an actual number, a real number. And if we're less than, conceivably we're less than 150, we can say that at town meeting, we would actually have numbers in hand. That would be the ideal goal.
Right. Okay. I think probably what I think might be a good course of action, one is, I think, Linda, if we can get copies of I'd like to see what came back from the various design firms, architects or whatever, get a feel for that. I think it would behoove everybody, if your expectation is to have or ask, or either you sponsor, or somebody sponsors an article for whatever amount of money, 150 grand or whatever for this, that probably it would be beneficial to have one or more public hearings to discuss this with the town, so that townsfolk can be informed as to what it is we're talking about. Because quite frankly, I don't know what at this juncture, I don't know what the scope is.
Right.
I don't know what you folks have settled on. Is it, a piece, is it the whole corridor, or what? I mean, we don't have to go to that now, but the thing is, I think it would be beneficial to have some public hearings prior to annual town meeting, just so the public better understands how you derive this 150K number and what the scope is relative to, you know, the 150 grand gets you sort of the design work to then get to the design work, because this is sort of an RFP, which will then result in another RFP, you know.
Joe, you can come sit down with us.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Hey,
So I think it would be beneficial to have one or more, you know, public hearings to let the folks know. Because I don't think you should be presenting this for your initial shot at town meeting.
Yeah, just to back up quick if I'm wrong, just going back to our actual charge. Our actual charge was to basically come up with to use the expertise on this committee and engineers that we brought into an open house to come up with a number that was, you know, a meaningful number, not just something pulled out of here. So this is the process that we've been through, and basically we're at the end of that charge by presenting this number. So we're looking sort of to the selectmen, the board, to guide us what's the next step as you're doing, which is good.
Also, getting in front of advisory will be very important.
Yes, yeah, I think that also would be important to schedule some time with advisory as well.
So the 150,000 gets you what percent design? Like if we're doing the whole corridor, is it?
So the way it flushed out was to create a master plan to look at the entire corridor, and along that corridor to prioritize the worst intersections, and then to determine a sequence in which to approach them. So if you were to do them out of sequence, you're not gonna cause a traffic problem. If you did them in sequence, you'd get benefits incrementally with each segment you brought forward here, you know, in future years.
Right, so it's not 150 grand doesn't get us a design for a quarter of a mile of the street. This is a engineering plan which would then go against what the real engineering plan would be.
Right, but what it would also get is, out of the 3 top priorities, it would also get us at least 2 or 3 design alternatives at each of those locations. Again, just a conceptual scenario for us to then be able to determine and take to the public and understand if these make sense or not, and then put them out for, you know, full blast design in bid documents.
Okay. Okay. So this is great stuff, and I would suggest I'd like to see what the firms got back to you, and then also schedule some time to have a couple of public hearings so that the folks know exactly what we're looking at, and better inform them what the top 3 priorities are, and you know what the process is moving forward.
If you could get those into Linda, then we'll get them out to the selectmen and send to advisory.
Okay. Yep.
It'd be helpful to leave them with a summary for now.
The summary that I transmitted?
No, I was asking, we put together a summary from your...
Oh, that, okay, sure. I think that's helpful, sure.
So,
Thank you.
sort of in the meantime, just so we're not waiting for... Joe spent a lot of time going through the detail, every one of the proposals.
Yeah.
And putting together the summary that basically distills it down. Go first.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I got one. So it's a really finely distilled, it's taking in some cases 6, 8, 9 pages and distilling it into what's a pretty close summary and comparison between the 6 firms. And it was very helpful for us as we were going through this, so thanks to Joe.
So, Joe, this would come up with 3 schematic designs for an intersection. Let's just say one intersection, and then based on that, the town would pick one, and then we would get a further, a construction document for that.
So what we get remains to be seen. What we've done is we've asked the design consulting community, how will they approach it, and we've gotten their ideas back, and we've aggregated them into what we think will become an RFP, so we can tailor that as we see fit. We can ask for one design scenario, we can ask for 3.
Okay.
The more you ask for, the more you're gonna pay for. But the thought would be that we get at least 2 for each location. Both the people suggested that. And then from those, and if we wanted more, we could ask for more. And from those, we could take, in priority, we could take those into a public realm. By the way, part of this process also includes several public meetings, with
Yeah.
stakeholders.
Yep.
So you're talking about doing a public hearing before we get to even talk about the funding piece of it, but you're also talking about doing public hearings as part of the process. So what that would do is allow folks to understand the priorities and understand the alternatives, and that as we delve into each one of those in sequence, we can open up the doors completely using those concepts. And then again, through a public participation process, you might find that there's a 4th alternative that wasn't even considered that might make more sense. So we wouldn't be confined to any one of the 3 concepts.
Okay. Gentlemen, have any other questions? Martha?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Is this item we've just discussed on the agenda complete streets?
No,
No.
this is.
Okay, I was just a little confused,
No,
and
it's not.
that's why I didn't see it mentioned.
No, it's
Thank
not.
you.
Sure. Okay. All right, then, well, thanks much. What's the number you're thinking about asking for?
The $150,000, right.
Basically, sort of an average, like we threw out some outliers and
Okay.
sort of did an average and then we added a little bit for contingencies.
Okay.
So what we'll do, one of the things that will be on the agenda for February 15th is the first draft of the warrant.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a placeholder on the warrant for that. Doesn't necessarily mean that the money's approved, it just means that we'll have a placeholder for it and the loss.
Right.
So when you see the first draft of the warrant, you'll see an article for literally everything
Mm-hmm.
that's on the list right now.
Right.
Realizing that every year, one or more drop off, but it will give you the snapshot as to what we're looking at to start off with.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do you folks understand the role in advisory in all this?
I don't.
Okay. Well, advisory is the group that right now is going through the budget in detail. And not only are they going through the budget in detail, but they're looking at the financial reserves of the town, the probable tax income, and also loan capacity and stuff like that. So they're not just looking at the budget, but they're looking at and prioritizing projects and separate articles outside of the budget. So they've gone through 80% of everything that they've got to review, maybe even 90%. They're starting to circle back and talk to certain groups about projects a second time. So it would, you're going to be a bit of a surprise to them. All right?
That's an understatement.
Yeah, but, you simply weren't prepared to address them. Make it very clear that the reason you're coming in late is because you really weren't prepared to come in any earlier, and you couldn't have had an intelligent discussion with them earlier than this.
Right.
And, then you and advisory will, do the advisory dance, and we'll see where it ends up.
Our advisory committee in some other towns would be referred to as the finance committee, so it's synonymous with the finance committee.
Mr. Chairman, and perhaps Don would know, under the authority of the charge, does this standing committee have the authority to put a capital request project item in, or does it have to be introduced by the selectmen or some other body?
That's kind of why we came here first. Was the question.
Yeah, I am not sure that these folks they can't sponsor an article.
No, the DPW could, the selectmen could.
Right.
So I'm looking for guidance. Am I amending my capital request to now include this, because I haven't included it? Or should it be coming from the board at a later date? Again,
Well, I think it most likely will either be sponsored by the DPW or the Board of Selectmen. then we'll figure out where the money's gonna come from. But the money's gonna come from the same pile that
Well, that I understand.
all the other money comes from.
I'm just looking for protocol as far as getting this information to advisory so they can consider it. Does that come on my plate, or?
I think the most expeditious way to do it would be to have the DPW do it.
I would say so, yeah.
Sorry, Joe.
I'm just gonna smell them on one. I understand.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking for guidance.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, very good question. Okay. All right,
I would just add that as a former advisory committee member many years ago, the word protocol kind of surprised me, because there really isn't much protocol in terms of discussing things with the advisory committee. So I understand that you're gonna kind of shepherd it through, but.
I just don't want to overstep my bounds, so that's.
Right. But,
oh, don't worry about that.
you gentlemen should feel comfortable approaching advisory in whatever
Oh,
way
yeah.
you feel comfortable with and Joe's comfortable with too.
Yes, Mr. Morris.
Well, being a member of advisory, I would suggest that you get requests to be put on our agenda as soon as possible. We're meeting next Tuesday, because this is a surprise. I wish I hadn't walked in near the end of your presentation, but the numbers stuck out.
It's only 150K. It's only 150.
I know. What's that among friends? Anyway, we will be very receptive.
All right, sounds good. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you
Thank you for all the work you've done.
Thank you. All righty, next up on our agenda, we have Police Department Chief Nelson. Chief Nelson, would you come on down? First up, under the Police Department agenda is a recommendation from Police Chief Nelson to sponsor Jason Day for the Reserve Intermittent Academy. Stand one side. Chief, how are you this evening?
Doing well, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You've met Jason. Jason moved into town a little less than a year ago, and after a 26-year career in the military, the U.S. Navy, military law enforcement, he decided to ask around to see if he could be sponsored to the Reserve Intermittent Police Academy. And obviously, since he lives in town, we usually go to the chief where you live in. We do a little background check to make sure he's a upstanding citizen, which he came through with flying colors. We looked at him, and he wanted to sponsor himself, so it's not going to cost us anything. He signs waivers, he pays all the tuition, all the books, he does everything. And then we show up at his graduation and put a badge on him. It may not be a Bolton badge, but we'll find something for him just to get him through. He can give it back to me at the end. But at that point, then he's marketable. He can go to different police departments, if not Bolton, to try to become a reserve officer.
Super.
So he's here tonight asking for permission.
Can you just explain to me what the difference is between the Reserve Intermittent Academy and the other academies that we've...
The full-time academy's 800 to 900 hours.
Yeah.
The part-time academy is just over 300.
Okay.
So it's a scaled-back academy. They learn the same thing, but they may not do one topic for 8 hours. They may only do an hour or two. So it's scaled down, and then they have police powers once they become appointed by a town.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can't show up to Pam Powell and get sworn in as a police officer unless you have that reserve training
Okay.
or the full-time.
And so you can do this shorter training because of your background?
I can do this shorter training for a couple of reasons. One, because I would be a part-time police officer in whatever town ended up taking me on after the academy. For me, I picked the Intermittent Academy because while I love being a police officer for 26 years, coming back to the state of Massachusetts, none of my certifications transfer over. I would have to start back at the bottom, and to get a wait list for that could be anywhere from 2 to 4 years. So I had to find a career that would provide for my family. So I took my other skill of program management and found that. But I still want to get back to my community. I still love the work. I love the job. So this is a way that I can do both. I can give back to my community that I've moved back into and plan to stay for a long time. And I can keep my program management job.
Super. All right, so the part-time, he would go evenings, Tuesday and Thursdays, for probably 6 months to get that certification.
Great. No, I think that's super. I think it's wonderful.
Pleased to have you on there.
Absolutely. So I'm good with it. Any other questions?
No.
All right, then I will take a motion to approve the recommendation for the chief.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're staying.
Yes, I'm staying. Jason, call me that day or so. We'll talk.
Definitely.
We'll get all the forms signed.
Good luck with everything else, Chief.
As he walks out the door.
That's right.
All right, next up is an update on the new FY18 Cruiser.
Okay, FY18 Cruiser, we went to, at the last meeting, gone to the 150. So Fleet Manager Dan Keller went scurrying right down MHQ with his hands out and said, when can I have it? They told him August, September. So we said, no, that's not gonna work. So we have to fall back to the Explorer. So now I'm back asking for approval to go back to the Explorer, which they have said I should be able to have this by the end of May.
Okay.
Because they're being built. Same thing with the F-150s. You know, production should be end of March. They have some quality time that they hold on to them before they ship them. But the Explorer will be on their lot and 4 to 6 weeks to install all the aftermarket stuff.
Well, it's important we get it in this fiscal year for the money, so, I mean, that was the original plan, and, you know, I had no problem going with the F-150, but if we just can't get it, then we'll go back to the Explorer.
So last time you said that the SUV had issues with, I guess it was carbon dioxide coming out of the cabin.
The CO, yep.
And that was related to the aftermarket work.
Part, I can go 75% aftermarket, 25 Ford. Some of the seals that are in the back, the welding, seal gets in. And with the aftermarket, when they take off things, the gaskets, when they put everything back in, the gaskets aren't fitting properly. And yeah, all the aftermarket wiring's gotta go somewhere. So the carbon monoxide follows that in. So those are things they're aware of and should be fixing.
Yeah, I mean, Ford stepped up and they stepped in to fix the problems.
They came right out the second day after we took the whole fleet off the offline. And yeah, they've been working. They're trying to fix all these cars, and I'm sure they're gonna find the civilian model's gonna be the same. They're gonna have to fix all those. But so far, there hasn't been any other incidences, I think, since the Auburn incident. So they're aware, kind of putting the sealant where they need to, and hopefully we'll be okay.
Well, I'm fine going back, so.
I'm fine.
Good. Take a motion to go, yes, Martha?
Excuse me, sir, you're just talking about the model of car to buy now, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion to approve going back to the Explorer due to time and necessity.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next up is discussion on the graphic options, which you had provided to us, the document.
Yeah, so I'll pass out copies so everybody has one. So this is our current graphic schemes. Lindsay, need
Yes,
to?
please. Thank you.
And that's our current scheme. And that if I took it and just did black and white, that could be our color scheme. So that could be an option, something to think of. Option one, which, again, Officer Keller went down and spent his Friday afternoon down there trying to come up with different options to make police and visibility, you know, obviously, that's what he was most concerned about.
Too far, thank you.
There we go.
Couldn't print the COVID and so on. All different forms. Number 2. Now, they're not marked, so you might have to keep them in order, just so you...
These two look the same. Like,
This is, find the 5 differences. And
oh boy, what's different?
Where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo? All right.
So, Chief Nelson, on this one, this is the current design, but instead of the striping in gold or silver, it's in white.
All white, yes. Yep. The only color you might see is on the badge, but that's very subdued.
Okay. All right.
So, number 3.
Thank you.
That's number 2. That's number, 2 and 3.
This is 3. I think you got 1 and 2, so these first. And number 4.
Thank you.
2, 3, 4, 5, 3. So that was our first trip down to MHQ to, well, let me just give you the bag first, then you'll have all the options.
That's number 4, number 3, and number 2.
X. And backs. Now, we did have some modifications, which I think came out very good also. A no badge option. Now, I'm not gonna show you the, well, I guess we can take the F-152. It doesn't really matter, we're not gonna, that possibly our next vehicle. We took the badge off. I will say I like it. So we took the badge off and widened or enlarged the typeface. So no badge, and on the police on the hood, you did like an ambulance, so if you wanted to see it in your rear view mirror, you could read it that way, or in the first option I gave you, it has it as a standard version. And then no badge on the Explorer. No badge Explorer. Thank you. All right. Again, all great work. Dan spent a lot of time with the graphic artist to make it more visible, so that anybody driving by, day or night, should be able to see it without any issues. All reflective. So I guess we're here to see which one you guys like.
So when you say reflective, where's the reflect?
The white,
The white.
that's a reflective
Okay,
material.
reflective, yeah.
So any of those graphics they put on is a reflective material.
I guess, for me, I like these two because the police and Bolton are both in black. So there's kind of a clarity rather than Bolton being in white and police being in black, I think that's, kind of complicated and busy. So, whatever these two options are,
Those would be 3 and 4.
I think the graphics are very clear. I'd also like to make a case for putting the town seal on the vehicle. I think it's just part of, showing that the vehicles, are part of the town, like the DPW trucks. It just gives a nice sense of community.
And that seal is on there. It's a smaller version where it's a round version, so that one's got it on the window. You've got to look around on number 2, it's in the back quarter of the vehicle. So it is on there, it's smaller.
Yeah, I'd like to see it like on the DPW trucks where it's, the size of the shield, something like that.
The charge given to Chief at the last meeting was to address visibility problems. I think all 4 or 5 different variations do that very well. In regards to the seal, I think it's visually very busy. I think unless you're going to make the seal 2 feet wide, no one's going to appreciate what's on the seal, and so I'm comfortable with no seal. But other than, again, I think the chief addressed the main issue, and I will be happy to leave the rest of the graphics issues to the chief.
And I think going through and looking at all the data that I kind of found on the web and looking up for police specs and so forth, the word police is the real big thing that really is the attraction. You could be driving through, you don't even know you're in Bolton, so you really don't care too much if there's an emergency. Obviously you're looking for a police cruiser. So if anything, the town seal really isn't an identifier for a police car. So honestly, I like it small. I wouldn't make it as big as the badge, because the word police, I think, is the one that's going to attract people's attention. And I like the idea of the black type coming off the white. We really don't need Bolton as big. I like when we took the badge out, what we did is the type got spread out. So it's bigger type. So you're going to see police. Whether it's Bolton or Lancaster or Stowe, you may not even know what town you're in when you're driving through. You're looking for the word police. So if I can make that as big as possible without a seal or a badge, I kind of like this better. And looking around, looking at like the Hudson Cruiser, that's exactly what they've done. There's no seal, there's no badge. It's just police with Hudson right in the graphics. But I would agree, the number 3, I do like that. I like how, as you explained, it's not offsetting. You're not doing police one color and Bolton another. This just keeps it very standard, and we can do that with. If you really needed more coming around the back, we could just extend that and then have that typeface with more weight coming around. It's any of these options are practical. We can do whatever. If you wanted white to go all the way around, fine. If you like that, which I think this does look good, and just get rid of the badge, and we move all the type, and there's your seal right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good option.
And have police on the hood.
Now, yes, they will. We just gotta again determine how you like that. Let me find the. I like having it written as you would read it, if you come up upon it. The instances that you're gonna do it like an ambulance coming up behind you, if we're coming up behind you like an ambulance, our lights and sirens and everything's gonna go on, so you're probably gonna know we're coming. So that's why I was kinda going for the regular view of police, but totally up to however everybody likes it.
Was there another
Yeah,
option?
there is.
There's another one.
This one where it's regular.
Yeah, right here it is on the no badge version.
Mhm.
So
What's the difference between these two?
it's mirrored. So if you were driving, looking in your rearview mirror,
Okay.
police is going to be backwards, which I've seen sheriff cruisers, they've got sheriff, it's written normal left to right. So I kind of would recommend this and not go with that way. But definitely it'll be on there. We'll have it up there.
Well, I'm certainly in favor of police shield. I don't see the benefit of having, and you have it on the car, but I don't necessarily see the advantage of having a town seal as large. I mean, having a powder house in red on the side of the cruiser's not doing a whole heck of a lot for me, and I don't think it's gonna do a whole heck of a lot for people, but, you know, having something that's got a badge just reinforces. I wanna ask you a question. Of all these, which do you like the best?
The one I like the best, I actually like the version with all the same color type. So number 3, without the badge. Without the badge, let me do the, no, it's got the badge. This one doesn't have the badge. I like this where we're spreading out the type. So that, but with this all black type on white.
Mm-hmm.
So this, that would be your type there. And then, you know, we put emergency 911, protect to serve, the car number, we put roof numbers on it. We certainly can put a seal, if not on the window, we certainly can put the town seal somewhere in this area or up here on the front quarter panel.
All right, so it's, you like this, but without the seal and you stretch out Bolton.
Yes.
The more I look at it, the more I think having it all in the same color works better too. It's not as busy, you're right, and I think I think that is effective having it like that.
Works for me. Right. So number 3 is the winner.
And we certainly can either do the flag in 911 or just
Right.
just make it 911, so it's more visible. Wasn't sure if you like the flag or not, so if that's
It's
not-
probably a bit clearer if it's just white.
Yeah, I think it's,
Yeah. And it's,
we can always put just a flag on a court, on the back here, like we've done on the other ones, so.
all right,
All right, we're good.
so you like number 3, Bob?
I'm fine with number 3.
Like number 3? All right. Number 3 is it.
Can we see number 3?
Well, it's,
Pass it around.
Sure, that's a part of it, it's, the type will all be black.
But you're gonna take off the shield?
Shield will be off.
And the words will be bigger and you
Yes.
said spread out?
Yeah.
And no, and the seal, no seal?
The town seal will be on there.
Where?
Well, I'm gonna put it somewhere. I'll find a spot.
I've heard that before.
So do you want to vote to memorialize that?
Yes, I'll entertain
Right,
one
no,
question.
I don't.
Mrs. Remington?
Martha Remington, Main Street. May I approach the bench, sir? Got it. This is kind of a moot point, but I just thought you might be interested in these articles on what colors should police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks be. It's very interesting, especially on page 2 where it says that towns are beginning to get away from the all black, where it says many cities are now actually switching back to black and white, a move that pleases officers but may not be the best safety move. So I also have this picture of our beloved Chief Wilson in his white car. I think it had a blue stripe or black stripe with a nice big town seal here. And I think he used those for quite a while. I think this is a good compromise.
Yes.
And I love this chief too.
Yes.
Thanks, Bob.
I'm glad you didn't point out the paragraph that says, is lime green really safer?
Yeah. It turns out it is.
All right, then I will take a motion to approve option number 3.
So moved.
Oh, thank you.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. And then last but not least is a discussion regarding the creation of the Citizens Emergency Response Team.
You had a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just had because I didn't come here necessarily as a member of advisory, but I don't remember what the difference is between the difference in cost between this option and the F-150 that you had wanted.
The F-150 is gonna cost about $7,000 more.
That sounds good to me.
Oh, good.
All right, so the Citizens Emergency Response Team.
All right, the Community Emergency Response Team. If I do citizen, I'm sorry, but it's a community. I think it's community, yeah. Over the past year or so, I've been approached by several residents asking about the CERT team. There is no CERT team. They never formed. I'd say back in 2010, 2011, they started asking if there was residents, and I think they may have had 15 or 20 people that did the training with Chip Durant and Andy Bagdonis. And this, I think, goes back to Tom Moses when he was running emergency management.
Okay.
So, what I've been kind of trying to steamroll and get this back on track is to finally bring this to the board to, obviously discuss whether we need volunteers in town to be available for big disasters or medium disasters, wherever we want. If we need additional help, that is something that, a police officer, a firefighter, ambulance, or anybody that's in town, the highway or workers or anybody, that, we have to serve coffee or food to people that are in an emergency, or do light searches, small medical responses, stuff that is going to help us in the long run if we ever have a major disaster. Tornado comes through town, the bird flu years ago was a big problem, and we were preparing the high school. You'd need 20 to 40 volunteers to manage something like that. We have nobody, okay? And you'd be stripping away all your resources that you do pay for, or the volunteers, the fire and ambulance, and then you'd have nobody to respond to calls. So we have to think of building a volunteer base, and what that means is you'd have to consider them as some sort of special municipal employee. That way, if we do send them out, if they do something and they get hurt, or for liability purposes, they've got to be covered by the town's policy, which I did call the insurance. Linda gave me Bill's name, and Murphy Insurance said, as long as they're on a mission for the town of Bolton, they would be covered for liability. So if they're hurt, or anything happens, or somebody, claims something against them, then obviously that would all fall into for indemnity. So, Chip Durant on the fire department, lieutenant, he is our CERT instructor. He's our point of contact for CERT. Okay, there's probably a dozen people in the room right now that probably want to volunteer that either did the first training, and on that first training, I will add, they didn't do the last class. Whatever reason, the last class didn't happen. They were supposed to do a mock drill, and then they do a test, and then they would get their certificate. So that never happened, and that's what we want to get back onto. So it's obviously good all day long for all of us in the town, because if we build this operation, first training, if I get 10 people, then we'll do one in the fall, and we'll get 10 more, and we'll try to just keep building this, so we have 40 or 50 people to call on. They may not all be available, but certainly be rapid. The Board of Health had a walkthrough with TPH at the high school the other day. And the first question is, who's on your CERT team and where are they? And we all looked around and said, there's no CERT team, because the next time they come, they're gonna wanna do an actual mock drill. Okay, so that means
you need a team.
We need a team, so 1, 2, I got 5 people at the table plus me, so there's 6 people, because you're all being volunteered because we don't have anybody that would be sitting at the table to do the registration, sit at the next table to screen people. So that's what we want to get on. There's, right now, no budget in the emergency management. Chip would obviously have to be paid to do the training. That's just you should pay him. He doesn't, he's not gonna volunteer to do it. So, and there's at least 10 classes, a couple hours a night, 2, 3, 4 hours. So there is some expense there. Bolton Local did say they would cover costs. There shouldn't really be any supplies right now. Most of it's online, or if there's any printing costs, it'll be minimal. So I'm hoping with your support, and if you guys give the thumbs up tonight, then I can get to Chip and say, how much will the first class cost? And if he says a couple grand, then I'll go back to Bolton Local and say, we need a couple grand to cover expenses, and we get a class going. And then in the future, which I can't get, unless I can go back to FY, go back to advisory and see if I can put a couple $1,000s into emergency management, then I can start paying Chip or Andy or whoever is the cert person for their time.
Okay.
Are there any grants for this? I know this
I'm not aware of
state's
any.
interested in.
I'm not aware of any, but we haven't really, I have not looked for.
Yes, there is a grant. There's a $2,000 grant that February, it's a Monday, so the next couple of Mondays, there's a meeting to go over how to prepare that grant. So I'm gonna go to that. They said it now, because it's so big, it's very competitive. We might have a chance at that, but it's not a guarantee that you're gonna get. Not every town will get their things. But there are grants that emergency management can now build off of, like the regional dispatch. That regional dispatch gets all kinds of grants, and now if we can say we've got a CERT team and we want to get more grant money, then we've got a chance of doing better grant writing for that.
Yeah, I think State 911 would be very receptive to something like that.
So, you get 10 people, you put them through the CERT class. Do we now have a CERT organization, or are they just individual volunteers who have been trained to respond to certain situations or to work with police or EMTs in certain situations? I don't understand if this is an organization we're creating or if we're just educating a bunch of citizen volunteers.
Yeah. So, yes and no. What they have to do is first get through the training. The training doesn't mean anything, right? It means they get a certificate,
Yeah.
but from there, it doesn't mean they're just on. Anybody can take the training, and it may be just for personal preference. They may want to be better prepared in an emergency. So there's nothing that says once they go through the training that they now have to become volunteers for the town. So that would be separate. That would be me and the fire chief. We would start setting that up, and we would rely on Chip and anybody else that wants to participate on the administrative side on ours. So yes, we would start now making volunteers for CERT. So that's like the second
So
phase of it.
you'd start creating some kind of organization that's an ancillary to the police and the EMTs and the fire.
Usually the fire chief handles emergency management. So
Okay.
because the fire chief's part-time, he's not here to do a lot of that, so this is why I'm stepping in.
Okay.
So the fire chief, or myself, will now build and start,
Creating an organization.
I don't know, is that the proper term, organization or
That's what-
group? Team, department maybe.
Okay,
I don't know
but
what
they'll
you.
have, people will have identified responsibilities, they'll have identified contacts and stuff like that.
Yes, you're gonna have, it'll all be coming from the incident management, so you'll have the two chiefs, doing a co-director thing, and then we work down. And then the volunteers will be given jobs
Okay,
to go do something.
okay.
And yes, there will be an organizational chart. Obviously, I think that's what you're kind of getting at, but the co-directors of emergency management are gonna be the ones that are gonna set up that volunteer base.
And who will the CERT team report to?
Well, right now, it'll be me and the fire chief.
Okay.
And then if we build off and a fire lieutenant wants to be involved, then obviously we could have him as the point of contact.
Okay.
And then we've got to start somewhere.
Right.
So I got to get to see how many people are going to be interested. If it's 1, 2, 5, it's still good, but is it worth doing a lot of work? So I'm hoping to build this to 40, 50, 100, 200 people in case we ever need them.
The first step is we gotta find some people who are interested, so.
Yeah,
So what do you need from us tonight?
I need approval to recognize, obviously, the position. So what I want to do is at least do the training, okay? And then maybe once I get through the training, I can come back and say, this is what I want to do, and build the organization from there.
so do you need authorization or recognition to do the training?
I need recognition, because if we start this, I guess the point is, why do it if we're not going to get recognized?
So if you had a motion that if the Board of Selectmen recognized the creation of a CERT team reporting to the Chief of Police, would that satisfy your requirement?
And the fire chief.
And the fire
Yeah,
chief?
co-directors of emergency management,
Okay,
yes.
all right, well, I'll make that motion then.
We had some hands in the audience.
I just wanted you to know that the first CERT group, well, there were a lot of us here that did that, and it was started because of that horrific winter storm that we had several years ago.
The ice
The
storm.
ice storm.
Storm,
And we could
2008.
never understand why we weren't able to finish it, because we were so close to finishing. I guess it was money. There wasn't enough money to complete it, or some question. But it's not just for ourselves, but if there's emergencies and people are coming up 495, we may have to help more than you think. So,
Sure.
and the more people you have involved that understand all this, the better it's going to be for everybody. I was trapped in that ice storm for a week, literally trapped.
Okay.
I mean, you couldn't get to anybody, and it was scary, and there were people that needed help. So we need it.
So I have a motion on the table, do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chief.
Very nice.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, next up on our agenda is the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be quick. Just an update on the most recent Minuteman Building Committee meeting that we had on Monday. We are now, excuse me, we have 2/3 of the construction bids in, and at the moment, we're about $4 million under budget.
Cool.
We've got a ways to go, so I'm not saying we're $4 million. It's just a number, it's a snapshot in time. But we are starting to look at the ad alternates. We had several ad alternates on the project. And if we have funds, it would be great to do. And it really, and it's all relative to education or to facility. It's not, we wouldn't be expanding anything, but things like better finishes, better tile, that type of thing. One example of one bid that we just had was the glazier, the glazing and glacier. We had budgeted $930,000. The low bid came in at $840. So on a percentage basis, it's 10% under roughly, so which was great. We had one bid for miscellaneous metals, and I won't sit here and try to claim I know what all the miscellaneous metals are, but we had 3 bids, and this is a classic example of public bidding. One bid was $1.9 million, the next bid was $2.9 million, and the third bid was $3.9 million. And we just didn't know, if 1.9 was a responsible bid or not. And we went to the AG's office and asked if it was acceptable to rebid it, because we found a fourth company that didn't bid that would. So while it is public knowledge, all bids are public knowledge, so these 3 companies already know what everybody else bid, but nobody knows what the fourth company is going to bid. So we're thinking that people are going to get a little more realistic, hopefully. So we'll be going back out to that. But we've been very fortunate so far in the way the bidding is coming in. And just as another example, aside from finishes that could be sturdier, that could last longer and pay for themselves, from a technology perspective, technology infrastructure being key, we would increase the number of wireless points or the quality of the wireless infrastructure, which would be huge to be able to do that. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. So very, very exciting right now. And just two FYIs, neither of which I put on the agenda, but I'm not asking for anything, it's just informational. One is, I'm gonna get rolling in February on trying to find cost benefit, do some sort of cost benefit analysis on replacing the street lighting with LED lighting and be able to come back with a recommendation on that. Also, at some point in the next month or two, I'm going to try to renew or restart the effort to evaluate opportunities for solar panels on the landfill.
Oh, great. I needed to ask about that.
When we did that last time, we had 3 responses, all of which initially were unresponsive or insufficient. One company did step up and come in with a more complete response, which was very much appreciated. But at the time, things were up in the air in Massachusetts with the solar credit and all that. And we did determine that the best we could do at the landfill was a 1 megawatt facility, which is an absolute low end of what anybody's interested in. So trying to garner interest could be a little problematic, but it's worth the effort to go back out and do. So I will be restarting that effort, so I just wanted to let the board know that.
Great, super.
So any questions you may have on anything, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Don.
All right, next up is Board of Selectmen business, and first up in that is discuss the request from Bolton Local for the town to join more than 350 cities and towns throughout the country that support the terms of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord by endorsing the non-binding resolution. This was on the agenda last meeting. We had quite an extensive conversation along those lines. I think the conversation, went longer than I think anybody had discussed. We did agree to put it back on to take a vote as to whether or not this is something that the selectmen want to do. So right now, if there is nothing of any, if there's no new information, I'm not necessarily going to entertain conversation since we had a rather lengthy discussion the last time. So going once, going twice. Done. Is it something that has not been discussed before? I have the option to...
Right, I wasn't here, I just would like to make a one sentence.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. Maybe two, but it won't be more than a couple minutes. I just think that it's really important to take care of our environment, and that there are things that happen that we can't control. Oftentimes it's because money is more important to some groups than the safety of our environment. We can't drink money. We can't grow plants and money. And I just hope that we as a local community will do the right thing here to at least have our own small voice to protect our environment, which is so precious.
You're very welcome. I will, just one thing before I entertain a motion, is that we did discuss last time that one perfectly acceptable way is for a citizen's petition to be put on the town warrant, given the political nature of the item. So, I mean, we did this before with the purchase of Camp Virginia, which I think was an excellent way to go for that. So that is a completely viable option. So I'll entertain a motion. Since we had the discussion last time, the purpose of tonight is to discuss whether or not we were going to endorse the non-binding resolution and to endorse and support an article on the annual town meeting warrant. So do I have a motion?
Is that one motion, excuse me, sir?
What step are you taking as a board? What does the motion state?
Yeah.
To support the motion or to put the motion on the warrant?
What Bolton Local is asking is for the Board of Selectmen to endorse Paris Climate Accord, non-binding resolution, and they have requested that the Board of Selectmen sponsor an article. Okay. And that's what
Together?
Do you want to do it separately?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then-
The whole idea, last time we discussed this, it was, will the Board of Selectmen support this? If not, we'll go to town meeting and, just as an opportunity to save 30 minutes at our annual town meeting or more, just on that basis, I would support it. So I'd like to make a motion to support the terms of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord by endorsing the non-binding resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second?
No, you made the motion. No, this is not a one-man band. You can't play both parts. Either Romeo or you're Juliet. You can't do both.
Do we have a second?
I'm not hearing a second, so the motion fails.
Does it have to come from the table?
Why is it failing?
Because there's no second.
I know, but why? What's the reasoning that you're not voting in favor of it?
We're not done. There's a second part to this. Do I have a motion that the Board of Selectmen sponsor an article on the annual town meeting per the request of Bolton Local for the Paris Climate Accord?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
No. Sorry, nice try. Can't do it. Do I have a second? Okay. I'm not hearing that, so the motion fails. So, no.
That is hot.
Wow.
So you don't get a vote?
Excuse me?
There's no motion.
There's no motion.
But you couldn't second it?
Yes, you
seconded
could.
it.
Yes, I could. I
He
could
was
have.
choosing not
But
to.
you didn't. I could have. Either one of us could have seconded, and we chose not to. Mr. Myers?
Yes, I just have a simple question. Which of you gentlemen is up for election at the next annual town
I am.
election? Thank you.
As I stated last time, and we're going to keep this brief, I have no intention of having a long and extended conversation on this. People need to be reminded of the fact that in this town, about 1,000 people voted for the gentleman who now occupies the Oval Office. That gentleman is responsible for the discussion we're having here this evening. This is a political issue, and the people of Bolton elected the selectmen to deal with issues related to Bolton. And I disagree with the information you had in your letter that the non-binding resolution that we did for the gas pipeline through town is equivalent to this, and it really is not. So it's not fair that you're asking the three selectmen to take a vote on something for the whole town to move forward when there are potentially many people in this town who voted for the individual who is in the Oval Office and who might agree with what that individual has done.
This
Because-
should be Democrat or Republican issue.
Well, but that's where we're standing. So as I said last time, it is perfectly acceptable. And I think it makes it even more democratic if there is a citizen's petition put on the warrant that's asking the town to weigh in on this. Because ultimately, that's what you want to have happen, is for the citizens to weigh in on it. And certainly, I, as a citizen of this town, will weigh in on it. And I think I made my position very clear at the last meeting where I stand on all of this. It's not necessarily that I disagree with what you're doing, I support what you're doing. But I think it's fair to everyone in the town of Bolton that this be done in this manner, rather than having three individuals sort of dictate a political view. Because what happens if someone came up to us and said, you know, we're a group and we want to sponsor gun control, or we're a group and we want to sponsor the ability to have people to carry concealed weapons in the town of Bolton, or we have a group that sides with the individual in the Oval Office and we want you to support the building of the wall between Mexico and the United States, or something else. And, that's not necessarily something that the three of us should be deciding on what the town should be weighing in on. And that's why we have the route of being able to have a citizen's petition, which allows that to occur. And I think that's a much better and much fairer way to go. So I know a number of you asked me why that's my position. So it's not that I don't support it, but I think it's a better and fairer way to have this particular issue brought to the town of Bolton, and for having a good discussion and good discourse at the annual town meeting, and let the people who attend the town meeting, those people who are either for or against, speak their mind, and you vote on it.
And for my part, since you asked, we did not decide to approve or disapprove it. We decided not to decide tonight. That was all that got addressed. Not whether it was good, not whether it was bad, just whether or not it was appropriate for these three people to speak on an international stage on behalf of the entire town of Bolton. I have read the document. I have made some notes. It's a very noble document that probably has a few flaws in it. Right? It covers the whole world. It covers a very important topic. Not everyone's going to agree with what it has to say about moving wealth, transferring technology, and what the checks are on whether or not that's done properly. The United States is not the only signatory to this document. You've
It's
got-
the only non-signatory.
The only non-signatory.
There are various aspects of this. You can imagine some countries using it to transfer technology that's monitoring technology that's not just for monitoring pollution and stuff like that. And again, it's not for us to decide whether or not those flaws in the document are worth overlooking or not. Again, it's a noble document that it's a document with a noble intention that has flaws in it. And no one appointed us, the arbiters of everything that Bolton believes in, or the arbiters of everything that people in Bolton should believe in. And so I believe that for us to turn around and make a declaration on the international stage or the national stage is just way over what the selectmen should be doing, whether I'm sitting here or somebody else is sitting here. So that's my reason for not seconding the motion.
If somebody has something unique, we do need to move on.
Kind of unique.
All right, well,
I'll make it short. Sharon Chappelle, Warner Road. I have a lot of respect for you deciding on a model of servant leadership. From my religious background, this is a good thing, where you do the will of the people. But you also have a position in which you help to define the pathway. You have a leadership role to play. And I can see you trying to balance that here. But let me say that the Board of Selectmen, not necessarily in this particular makeup, but over the last several years, have repeatedly made decisions that Bolton will try to be energy efficient, will try to be careful about the environment, that as a town we will make those decisions. And you have made leadership positions. You haven't thrown all of those decisions back to a vote of the town. And I think that those of us who were bringing this to you were thinking that what you would be doing by supporting this is to essentially say what Bolton has been doing all along, which is when we are faced with a decision between taking care of the environment for ourselves and our children, or making some other financial decision, that we will opt for the environment. And I think that's what we were after. So, you know, you've made your decision, it will go there, but understand that we will continue to support you in every move when you make a choice in favor of preserving the climate. So, thank you.
At a town level, we are doing that, you know,
Right, yes.
you know, and moving forward. But I think there's, as both Bob and I have said, there's a limit based upon sort of political ramifications, and you know, there are people in this town who may not necessarily agree with what, you know, you're asking us to do. And I think, you know, having it as a citizen's petition and having it brought forth at the town meeting in that manner, I think is the better way to go.
Stan, can I just add?
Sure.
I just wanted to thank you all for considering the motion. On behalf of everyone here, it's fair to say we are disappointed, but tonight we achieved one of Bolton Local's goals. You supported the START team. That's one of our 5 goals already achieved for the year, check. And one of the other goals is to educate the community in front of the whole town. That's a huge opportunity to do so. And check, that'll be another goal accomplished, regardless of which way it gets voted. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think there are 2 additional issues that did not come up last time that you two have injected into tonight's meeting. One is the question, if there's a president that some people have voted for, is this the president's responsibility and not the responsibility of the board? And complementary to that is Mr. Skansky's comment that it's not, as I understood it, it's not really the Board of Selectmen's responsibility to take a position on this. I would respectfully disagree with both of you on in a number of ways there. I'll just mention 1 or 2. One is that the people who voted for the president voted for him for any number of different reasons. If we sat here for an hour, you could write down 100 of them. Reasons that people selected the president, and his attitude on climate change would be only one. And so it can't be left simply to the question of, well, what does the president believe about this issue? And then with respect to the Board of Selectmen, I say, well, if the president can't be the spokesman at all times for all people on all issues, well, who can? Well, we happen to have a 3-level federal government. That's the government that our founders invented for us. And if we expect to use it, we've got to use it at all 3 levels. And the municipal level is certainly one of them. And so I respectfully want to say that I think that you're declining a very important responsibility, and the voters have got a right to look for a leadership and for a statement on important issues, particularly issues that a whole bunch of people will come in and say, we think this is an important issue for our town to consider. I think you have a responsibility to take them up on that, and I have asked for a public hearing. I thought there ought to be a public hearing on this, but I'll just stop by saying that I think you're dodging the bullet, and I think you ought to be held responsible for declining to take a position and to lead this town on one of the 2 huge issues which faces humanity, which is climate change and war.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Wilder, but I respectfully disagree with the position you've taken. We have made a decision here, and as I said, there's a perfectly acceptable route for a citizen's petition to be put on to allow the citizens to weigh in on this. I think you'll find, in going back, that the Board of Selectmen, to your view, shies away. We don't. I mean, there are very, very few instances where what we've done tonight is what we've done. There have been other people who have come before this board to ask for similar things, and for pretty much the same reasons, we have declined endorsing one or another non-binding resolution, but it's very few and far between. So I take exception to your statement that we're shirking our responsibility. I don't think we are, but I think the avenue that you have left is a perfectly acceptable avenue to pursue what you need to pursue.
I hope you understand that it's not easy for me to sit here with a room full of people who want me to do this and to turn around and not do it. I believe that I am making the right decision. You know, maybe I'm not making the right decision for me, given some of the feedback I've gotten, but I'm making the right decision for the town. I firmly believe that.
I'll take one more question or comment, and then that we move on.
So, Mr. Shatansky.
Could you identify?
Oh, I'm sorry, Teresa Sauer, Wilder Road. I appreciate your position, but as our elected official, and given that you ran unelected, we hardly know anything about you, could you share with us your personal feeling about signing the agreement?
Well, I'll repeat what I said a moment ago, which is that it's a noble document that has flaws in it. And as a selectman, I'm not going to turn around and say how everyone on town should feel about it.
I think a lot of the feedback is about leadership, and the other two selectmen have both said they're in support of this. I understand that there are, and I applaud you taking such an interest in the document itself. I guess I'm looking for the overall, what is your stand about?
Well, I'd have to really understand more about what are the ramifications of the technology flows and the wealth transfers that they're talking about, who's responsible for what. You know, how much of this is just PR and how much of it is actually going to be stuff that nations are held to. There's no accountability in the document as a whole that I can see. And I frankly haven't investigated it enough. I've investigated it enough to feel confident in my position that the selectmen should not represent the town. I have not investigated it enough where I'm prepared to take a stand on it as a whole. It's a noble effort, it's a noble document, but I'm not going to say it's perfect in all respects, or this one flaw is worth scrapping the whole thing. I'm not in either one of those camps yet.
And that's not, and certainly that's not the purpose of tonight's discussion or
Right.
the vote.
No,
It was what the selectmen feel is in the best interest of the town to move forward, and we've done that by exercising our prerogative to vote, and you still have an extremely viable and as equal option to bring this to the town. So we're not precluding anyone from doing anything here. But you're asking us to take the leadership position, and at least two of the three of us feel, the way we voted, that the best route for this is a citizen's petition. So we're not shirking our responsibility. Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next agenda item, which is the designation of the Animal Control Officer for Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 151.
The animal control officer continues to be Susan Latham, and this form would renew that designation.
Okay. I mean, I don't have a problem with Susan doing the job that she's done. She's done a great job over the years.
It's also the assistant.
So is the form for both?
There's two different forms.
Yeah, there's a second form that has Phyllis on it as well.
All right, I think we're probably close enough to the agenda item that we can consider both. So I'll take a motion that we renew Susan Latham and
Phyllis Power
for animal control and assistant animal control officer.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next up, is to execute the liquor license for Bolton Bean, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen on August 31st, 2017. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good to see you.
Are you still?
Yeah, I had surgery on Tuesday.
Oh, man.
Ouch.
Wow.
I'll be seeing you guys in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Coffee with the town administrator again tomorrow morning.
All right. Great. Were you buying?
Bring your
Is that
thoughts
my
and
understanding?
concerns.
Yeah.
8:30.
You buying?
8:30.
That's just
8:30 to
15
9:30.
people that we might see there tomorrow morning.
I don't think I'm gonna be alone, which will be a first, so.
All right, so this is something we voted on back in August, and basically we're just here to put our John Hancocks on the back.
You won't be serving liquor in the morning, will you?
Right, so here's the
That's what I'm
license.
Can you backdate this thing?
Is there any reason I should abstain from this since I didn't participate in the original vote?
No, you're perfectly fine voting on it.
Okay. All right, so do we have to vote or just sign?
It's already been voted, you just signed.
Okay. All right. Great. That's what we'll do.
So, what are your, while you're here, when are you gonna start serving? What are your hours?
So-
Happy hour?
So we're looking for basically, I think Fotini starts at 9 or 9:30, and they can serve up until 11 or 11:30. We've been approached by numerous groups who would like to hold bridal showers and other private events at the coffee shop on Sundays and days that were closed. So having the early morning liquor license would mean we didn't have to pull a special permit every time we wanted to do this. And then events like paint nights where we could run until 11 o'clock at night and bang through a couple paint nights and help our business and then give back to the people that want to come and enjoy the paint night. So it kind of covers all spectrums.
And then on our side, you know, if we're gonna start serving in lunchtime, we're not sure about entirely that, but then also things like live music, poetry nights, game nights, things like that, that we wanna be able to hold at night. That kind of covers the second end of it.
And just in case anybody listening wants to point out, Fotini's does not open until 4, but they do have private functions off and on earlier in the day.
Yep.
So they do open and serve earlier.
Super.
than that.
Yeah, we've had bridal showers that have come in that wanted, and then we told them, oh, you're gonna have to get these permits to get, and then that was they were like, oh no. They were like, it's easy, just do some work, and they're like, no, thanks. So
Super.
we're
Okay,
hoping
great.
up there.
Super. Well, you're all signed, sealed, deliver.
Excellent.
Back up the liquor truck.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
I need to make a copy of this and then I'll just
Yeah.
original down to you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks,
And do we have any minutes?
Yeah.
This one, okay, all right.
I'll accept one set is in the pipeline.
Yes,
Do we
that's
have
a
to
good
vote the
reminder.
warrant?
I'm sorry?
Do we have to vote the warrant?
I actually don't have it on here, I'll do it at the next, we'll
Okay.
put it on the next one.
thought
We'll
that's
have a
what that
list.
was.
Yeah,
Has everyone,
it
has
is
everyone
warrant,
signed it
but I didn't
since
put it.
On the agenda?
Right.
Okay.
Sign
To
what?
approve-
The warrant.
To approve it for the minutes, but you do have to sign it.
Okay.
Not yet.
And Stan, did you sign the?
Yes.
sign, but please do not take it with you?
Sign it, yeah.
No.
All right, well then, if there's nothing else on the agenda to deal with, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
We can